we've yet to see really anything out there that does a nice job of providing, the initial configuration and rollout or cleanup to implement QoS, and it's becoming more and more critical. We're hearing everyone wants to go to software as a service, right? OneDrive, Office 365, Skype, all these off-network resources. But how are you accessing them? Over the network you have today. And a lot of companies are not at SD-WAN deployments where they have broadband internet and other mechanisms to get to that. So they have to really be careful and conscious of what that QoS policy is to essentially cloud ready the network so they have the QoS properly allocated for the new applications. And like the Kazaa example or others, when you have old things in configurations in there and bandwidth is being reserved or not being properly allocated, you're set up to fail. And it's really, this is business critical. And these are the type of projects that really drive automation from a strategic standpoint. So with that, Olivier is going to start to drive here into the automation of QoS, and to make it interesting, doing it on multi-vendor.
So here I've got QoS activated, and I could add, if I wanted to, the two features that I added on the switch, right? I could add them here, so that this router also benefits the baselining of SNMP and TP. I'm just going to focus here because we're running, out of time. This is, everyone familiar with MQC will just recognize, QoS done here. So this is the CLI for my policy map. This is the CLI, just the service policy statement that I'd like to see for my interface, the class maps that I have here, right? And let me go back to the interface very quickly. The challenge with the interface structure with any vendor is that most of the time you've got statements under the interface that are for various network functions. The service policy one is for QoS, but you've got also the description, the IP address, whatever routing, your OSPF cost statements and all that. So we're touching QoS here. So like I said earlier, you want to make sure that when you are upgrading QoS, when you're managing QoS, you're only maintaining QoS, and you're not touching any other statements within this gig001 interface. I want them untouched, right? And so this is where the groups are coming into play, and this is where you can specify, here, what are the underlying commands for your interface, which one you will allow the engine to touch, right? I could add the bandwidth statement, right? Because it's QoS relevant. But if there are any other statements, the engine is not going to touch it. So let's go quickly and see how Juniper does QoS. I've got an SRX here, and I've got the QoS feature already activated on this one. And it's not like policy map, class maps. It's just a little bit different. You've got your forwarding classes here. Your interface statements. Your scheduler and scheduler map. Here, right? This is just your trusted CLI for QoS on these Juniper boxes. So now, if I go and select these two devices, and I'm going to say to the engine, okay, for these two, show me what's going to happen. Again, the notion of show me is you want the engine to be safe and predictable. Right? You just don't want to just start spreading things out there and you don't know what's going to happen. You want to see what's going to happen first. And so this is the Cisco switch is already done. And you can see here, well, nothing here. And we'll see it in a second why. And let's go to Juniper here. And the Juniper here, what you're about to do is it's going to deploy this, and you can see you've got some extra delete statements. You've got like a former, previous incomplete QoS, configuration that was in the Juniper that was just not cleaned up correctly. Let's go back to the Cisco and see why. Obviously the engine said, I'm not going to do anything on this device, right? It says nothing. Well, let's go and look at this router for a quick second. Then it's not going to do anything. You know why? Because it's already there, right? So let's alter this and see how the engine's going to react. So I've got a little text file somewhere I can show you. This is what I'm going to do to this device. I'm going to alter, the configuration of it, right? So let's do this. Conft duck, and I'm altering this. And I could quickly jump into config drift, right? Just to show you the feedback loop, that, of course, config drift is going to be able to tell me where for this device, something changed. And so what you would like to have is something telling you that something has changed, and then you can make the decision of whether you would like it to be remediated or not, right? Oh, here there's a unauthorized change. What the hell? Oh, yes. Oh, what is this? This is not my QoS model. And someone altered my PQ and divided it by 5. No wonder why users are complaining about the quality of their voice calls. All right. So if I go back to the model, then let me ask again to the engine, what are you about to do with the current state of this box, right? Let's do this. Let's go to the logs. And again, if the logs are overwhelming, then you can just simply deactivate some of this extensive logging that you have here. OK, let's go and see what the engine said it's going to do. So you can see here that the engine said, in order to spread the reference QoS model, then this is what needs to be done. And you didn't see me adding any no statements in the design or even assessing the state of the QoS configuration of this box. I just said, this is my reference design, make it happen. And this is what the engine said. Well, obviously, this, CS6, the SCP value should not be there, and your PQ should be restored to 10% and certainly not 2%. So you can see the declarative nature of Gluware and the way it handles this. And once you have the confidence that you would like to unmake this change, you can go back and say, well, make it happen now, right? Start action. And it's here to say, fixing QoS. So now the engine's going to go and make it happen for real. Should take like a few seconds, and when I go back, to config drift, then if the fix has been remediated, if the issue has been remediated, if the fix has been, been deployed, then my alert should go away.
So the power of this becomes, making QoS changes is complex, right? There's globals, there's interface level, there's a lot of places to make mistakes, right? Especially when you hit multi-vendor. If you try to do that internally and you try to go router by router manually, you're looking at 30, 45 minutes to an hour change window per device. If you have hundreds, in the case of the global pharmaceutical, 440 routers, outsourcing it was hundreds of thousands of dollars. By deploying Gluware, they're able to do this, and they literally were rolling out, they were provisioning 80 routers in an hour. That was their choice to break up the global network into 80 router slices, but they were doing 80 routers in an hour, and they were just like completely thrilled that they're able to push this change and now take it in-house. Because the next time they get a change from the business case to say, now we're moving to high-def video, or now we're doing, changing this application, they need to touch QoS, they're fully capable to adjust the QoS structure and deploy it on the global network. So QoS changes don't need to queue up and then be implemented once a year or twice a year, right? Because the cost. Now you literally could do, there's an all-hands company meeting, we're doing video broadcast to every site. I could dynamically change the QoS across the network to meet that business need and then change it back after. And so I think with something like this, you see that the ROI, that the power that it gives your operations team to take complex changes in-house. And Olivier's kind of doing a bit of painstaking, really showing you that this power of declarative and showing you the logs to show that, we really try to prove it first and prove it in the lab and make sure the model works, and then go do 10 at a time or go do 50, and then start. Once you have confidence in the product, you can go ahead and queue your whole global network and hit send. Our engine, we can have distributed engines that handle the workload, and we have queue management, which is going to run through and complete all those jobs. And it's even more powerful than that. Some jobs are short. Some jobs, like an OS upgrade, is a long queue job. We even have queue management for jobs of different length. So we really took painstaking effort in the 3.0 family of Gluware platform to be highly scalable, because we went from IWAN customers who were in the low thousands to going to global enterprises that are in the tens of thousands of devices. And so that's why we've enhanced the engine for scale and optimization. So we're pretty much, that wraps up the QoS demo, unless there's any final.
Well, you just see that it's back to what the baseline was, right? By just remediating the change, right? So.
Yeah. And the power of a preview is really cool, because if you don't have the visibility as to what changed, preview will show. You'll just take the desired state, compare it to what's on the box, and it will show you if anything needs to change. And you could actually do a scheduled preview and have a notification that says if anything needs to change. I mean, there's lots of ways you could approach this in terms of having operations team take this on and use it, but it really, again, force multiplier and it just enhances and reduces the workloads.
Will it do that? Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to ask, will it do that on the fly, device by device, or is that part of the workflow you've got to do, check for config drift before you want to apply any changes? It's a small step,
Yeah.
but it's one that can be easily forgotten.
Yeah, it really is. It's depicted in how you define the workflow. And if you want your operations team to follow a more prescriptive workflow, that's when that can be in another aspect of our user interface that actually steps you through each one. We're not kind of really going into the wizards and workflows in this session, but certainly if you want a prescriptive step A, perform a capture, implement the change, perform a validation, that can be depicted in a workflow. Yep.
So is that how you account for, because I had a question about QoS, because it's notorious for hardware models and different router and switch models vary in their capabilities. So the question would be, how do you account for that? The fact that this router's got 2 priority queues, but this one only has 1 priority queue, and my config is going to have that. So is that all in the templating and modeling up front? Like, the engineers have to understand that I have these 10 devices and they're all slightly different in QoS, so I've got to build my modeling and templates to account for that, and that's a human decision.
Yeah, in short, yes, you do need to pre-design for that. But the way you implement it could be, static model A, static model B, and then have various static models that you're applying to those known devices. Or you take a little more time in the onboarding and you perform a discovery, and you have a variable that is determining the state of the box, and then determining how it's configured. And in this last demo here, we have about 15 minutes to run through the last demo. You'll see where we're actually interrogating the switch, making a decision based on the fact there's access ports, and then applying a change. And so while we like to talk about no code, there are programming concepts that are introduced in the interface to do discovery and handle variables and make a configuration decision based on the state or some underlying value. Yeah.
Okay.
Now, just one quick thing to bounce on what you just said. Even if you have to create all these different, reference designs, we also try to meet you halfway. Because, for instance, you have a QoS design that is different between version 16 and after 16. They change just one word, right? So how do you deal with that? So you have a way to model and say, well, from that version onwards, it's going to be this QoS model, and from this version, and this before version, then this is the other, configuration that you need to use. And the engine, because it's capable of understanding which version, which operating system you're using, is going to select the right model for you.
So it's not that I have 10 templates. I have one template with choices and options, and it's intelligent enough to understand that
Yes.
for the version of software or the type of router, it can say, I need to do this and not this.
Exactly.
Yep. Yes.
Exactly.